Hey everyone, welcome back to the Viking Initiative for Building Excellence. Today we'll be covering reading as part of lesson 4 of the ACT course. So, again, we'll start off as we usually do, looking at the structure and the timing. For the paper ACT, for the structure, it's 40 questions, 35 minutes. Um, it's 4 10 question passages. Time will be very challenging. In my case, I had about 10 questions to go with 3 minutes to spare. It wasn't an ideal timing situation. So try as hard as you can to finish in 34 minutes and then use that 1 minute to try and check, but it'll be very challenging. For the digital, it's a bit better. It's 36 questions in 40 minutes, so it's 4 9 question passages. So with this, you have a bit more time, so try and finish in 38 minutes, which gives you about 9.5 minutes per passage with 2 minutes to review. So the question types include key details and ideas, which is the largest sector. It's 55 to 60%. This includes main ideas and themes, finding specific details and textual evidence, drawing logical inferences, and relationships and cause and effects. So this is probably the easiest type of question to answer for reading because it's it's a type of question that you look at the question, you just have to find evidence within the text, and then you'll be able to answer that question. It's very straightforward. Then you have craft and structure, which is 25 to 30% of ACT reading, which has word meaning and vocabulary and context, author's tone, purpose, and perspective, analyzing structure, organization, and point of view, and comparing relationships across passages. This becomes a little bit harder because now you need to understand context and you need to understand choices within context. So you need to know like the tone or the structure, the tone that the author is trying to get across, like the meaning that the author is trying to get across. And you have to put like words in context, ideas in context, all of that. And then lastly, probably the hardest part, which is only 13 to 18%, integration of knowledge and ideas, is analyzing arguments and reasoning, comparing multiple texts or viewpoints, and evaluating evidence and claims. Now, with this, you have to use all of your critical thinking skills. You have to analyze arguments and see what exactly is the author trying to say, which isn't like very clear sometimes. Like they'll try and trick you by having like tidbits here and there that sort of throw you off, but um, you have to be able to like integrate all of the text and like all of the knowledge you get from it to like return like one specific like meaning of the entire text, like what the author's trying to get across. You'll also have to compare multiple viewpoints. This also becomes difficult because you have to like think critically as to like what the authors would be, like what different passage points would be disagreeing with each other with or agreeing with each other with. And then lastly, evaluating evidence and claims. So like some questions would be like pick like the best possible evidence to show this. So you have to like understand what exactly this is trying to show, and you have to pick the evidence that would be matching, like that would emphasize what like the question is trying to ask you. So as usual, we'll be using the same method as we have for English and math, which is doing a practice test first and then sorting concepts into like four like brackets. The first bracket is again what you can do intuitively, whether it be main ideas, tone, reasoning, etc. Basically, you see it and you can do it. This would most likely be evidence finding. You shouldn't need too much practice with that. And then the second bracket is what you can do consistently, but with a little bit of thought. Um, Basically, it takes you a bit of time to, understand the passage, and then like answer a question based on it. Like you can't do it immediately. And then for bracket C is what you get wrong sometimes, and then bracket D is what you get wrong consistently. So D and C are the top priorities, of course. So you want to find review material for those question types in those categories, and you want to do this under time pressure. This is the one difference between reading and the other uh, sections, because like time is like a huge issue during reading. So you want to start your practice with time pressure so that you don't get used to not doing it without time pressure, and then you have to retrain yourself under time pressure. Yeah, don't waste your time by practicing A. That's the same as all the other sections. And then when you see yourself improving topics considered D and C, start practicing under strictly time conditions and add B to this practice. So that means doing more questions. Strictly time conditions just means doing more questions at one go rather than just doing a passage or two. So the timing method is pretty simple too. It's pretty straightforward. You have 10 questions per passage for paper. Expect to be done every eight with a passage every 8.5 minutes, which gives you about a minute to spare. Not too much time, but that's the nature of the reading. Try not to skip as many questions because a lot of them ask questions building off of each other and you'll miss vital information. um, yeah, these are kind of like the context questions, the questions about purpose, tone, etc., where you need to like have read the entire passage. So if you skip those and you lose your train of thought, like it's really hard because you have to go back and start over all over again. Then you want to read. So this is the steps that I used to like answer questions, and it worked out well. So you want to read the questions, you want to read the entire passage, and then you want to answer the questions. So by reading the questions first, you'll know what sort of evidence you need to find, so you can do those very quickly as soon as you read the entire passage. And then because you've read the entire passage at one time, you also understand the tone and the purpose without any like interruptions, and you can sort of answer like questions more intuitively. For the digital ACT, B and C still apply, but you're just applying a timing change. It's going to be you want to try and finish in 38 minutes, which is about 9.5 minutes per passage, giving you 2 minutes to review at the end. So let's go over some of the like content details. So there's four text types. So four types of passages you'll always see. So it's prose fiction, social science, humanities, and natural science. And passages of about 800 words will appear in the same order. With for the paper ACT 10 questions for each type of text. For digital, it's 9. Um, so yeah, budget your time, and what I recommend is knocking out the text that you feel most comfortable with. So personally for me, I found social science and natural science the easiest to do, so I would do both of them first, and then I'd go on to humanities, and then lastly prose fiction, because for me prose fiction took the longest to understand and like understand the purpose and the tone, so that would take me a bit longer. Um, but yeah, finishing like the ones you're comfortable with quickly gives you that buffer for you to be able to do the hardest ones for you with more time. So let's do some practice now. So yeah, this is the first practice question. Read over the text and then read the question. So I'll answer it now. So the answer is, so the question was, the author feels all this rating and counting and classifying of authors in line 61 to 62 is, and the answer choices looking at it are an example of giving into a competitive approach of literature, which the author feels is counterproductive. Example of an approach of literature that feminists should have supported and should continue to support, at odds with Matthew Arnold's view of the function of criticism, a view that the author endorses, important, especially if it helps the entire over of writers whose names contain double W's. So let's look at what the text is telling us. So, but what is all this? But what is all this rating and counting and classifying of authors about, anyways? If we set up one writer against the other, aren't we giving in to what some feminists tell us is the adversarial mentality of patriarchal culture? We may think of Matthew Arnold's view of the function of criticism to learn and propagate the best that is known in thought and squirm in our chairs. Who's to say what is best, and who's to say what is relevant? So in line 62, we see that the tone is negative because we're questioning the efficacy of rating authors. If we set up over here, it says if we set up one writer against the other, aren't we giving into what some feminists tell us is the adversarial mentality of patriarchal culture? That's a negative point of view to rating authors. So you eliminate F because the passage says the complete opposite. You eliminate H as the text is questioning the idea of rating. Um, so this is completely unimportant. Then you also eliminate G because Matthew Arnold, like he says, we squirm in our chairs after looking at Matthew Arnold's quote here. So he doesn't necessarily agree with Arnold. So the best option is E here. Pause the video if you want for this question. I'll go over it now. So the fourth paragraph, lines 31 to 37, establishes all of the following except. So let's read the text here. Abshu was put in a home that already had two other boys from foster care. The Masons lived in a small wooden bungalow right on the edge of Linden Hills. And Mother Mason insisted that they tell anybody who asked that they actually lived in Linden Hills, a more prestigious address than Summit Place. It was a home that was kept immaculate. But what he remembered most about the Masons was that it seemed there was never quite enough to eat. So let's see, what does it establish? So quite like let's see the answer choices. E was that Abshu had foster brothers. So yes, over here, two other brothers, so we eliminate E. F, that the Masons maintained a clean house. Does this establish this? A home that was kept immaculate. So you also eliminate F. How Mother Mason felt about the location of their house. That, again, she wants them to tell other people that they lived in Linden Hills rather than Summit Place. So eliminate G2. What about H? What Abshu remembered most about his years with the Masons? So this, let's see. This is a kind of a trick question because it tells you the bounds. So line 31 to 37. It does say over here, but what he remembered most about the Masons was that it seemed that there was never quite enough to eat. So that's confusing to us, right? Because all four of the answer choices might now be eliminated. But now you shouldn't eliminate H because remember the bounds. So if you think about it, this is 35, this is 36, and this is 37. So only past line 37 does it answer this question. So you don't eliminate H because the answer to this question was past it. So the answer is H. So yeah, visit thevikinginitiative.com for more AP, IB, SAT, or ACT resources. If you have any other questions, join the ACT group chat and ask our tutors. Thank you for watching, and the next episode will be about science.